What is up, my lovely BTV tribe? Chris Gio here, coming to you from Beyondtheveil. There's been a lot going on, and I'm just kind of like thinking out loud, so bear with me, but I've got like 30, 40 pages of notes here, just about shit that's happened from 2018 to now, and where we're kind of headed in this tangent universe. I mean, that's the only thing that I can draw from this idea, is that we are living inside of a tangent universe, a tangent timeline that we're not supposed to be in, and I've been trying to make sense of it over the past couple of years. I don't know if anybody else is feeling that. If you are, let me know, please. But it's so nice to be back with my tribe here and kind of figuring out what's going on in this next level. This I want to say it's Coda. It's Coda, the final chapter, before something huge happens. I don't know what it is, but anyways, so in this show, I want to discuss the tangent universe. There's so many different markers that I've been looking at, and just revelation after revelation after revelation. I never really got into the different frequencies and things like that, because I've always been like, ayahuasca's always been like my journey. People are talking about ketamine in the chat right now, going deep into the K-hole, going deep into the ayahuasca realm or things like that. But I've been falling asleep lately listening to theta waves and delta waves, and I don't know if it's psychosomatic or not, but there's a couple of videos on YouTube. If you just type in theta waves, it's like 9-hour video, and it just started unlocking like all kinds of stuff in the dream state. So I just figured I'd put that out there. Anybody wants to try it out, theta waves, and it's like the consciousness just boom, just expands. Or it's psychosomatic, one or the other, but I know it was a pretty crazy experience. And the weird thing is, here's the weird thing, is that I put it on, I fall asleep, and the power goes out in the house. And it just like, I don't know if it was a flash or I don't know what happened, but I know I woke up and my clock is buzzing like that. And the internet apparently died because it never reconnected. And it was at 33 minutes and 9 seconds of the video. And it was a 9.5-hour video. So I thought that was kind of coincidental, to say the least. So anyways, I want to go back for a second and just kind of figure out what's going on in the timeline. And that's kind of what I've been doing lately, is trying to figure out, kind of plot a course, like what happened? Did anything go wrong? Did we divert in one direction? If so, are other people feeling it out there, or is it just me? Am I just trying to make sense of a really, really, really fucked up situation, or is there something to this? So all the way back 2018, real quick, we went to the pyramid, did our ritual in the Great Pyramid, and our goal was to reset the matrix, or at least come back with some really, really deep esoteric knowledge. And the weird thing is, like, through this journey, you expect that you would come out glowing and you'd be like, oh, I've touched the divine and everything like that. But really, it was more like you get smacked really hard and then just crash really hard afterwards, because you realize that everything is all illusionary. And so you come back like you've seen some shit, like you've gone to war. And we said it was going to be 4 years, 7 months, give or take. Around the midway point of that, as this reset process is taking place, there was going to be an event. Well, first of all, let me back up for a second. There's a virus in the system, which is what we were talking about from like 2016 to 2018, which kind of took us to Egypt to say, okay, let's figure out, let's look at this virus. Let's figure out if we can get rid of this virus. Let's see what we can do energetically. And it wasn't just me, it was the whole tribe out there. I mean, everything was live streamed. It was freaking epic. So, anyways, so we do our ayahuasca ritual in there. We identify this virus in the system, and we're from 2018 to 2020. We're like, look, there's a virus in the system. It's gonna come to the surface, and in about 2 years, in that halfway mark, there's gonna be this huge shift. The virus is really going to try to attack. It's really going to try to flip the direction of the reset and kind of hijack the energies. And of course, everybody knows what happened in 2020. We had the lockdowns, we had COVID, we had everything like that. And all of a sudden, there was a virus in everybody's consciousness, not just ethereal, but like physically, like COVID, all that bullshit. So I started to ask myself, what's going on here with 2020? And again, if I'm being redundant, forgive me. I'm just trying to go through everything just sequentially. So 2020 seemed to be kind of a weighing of the heart kind of ceremony, where it was the human consciousness being put on the scale on Mot's feather, against Mot's feather on the scale, and kind of weighed like, do you have attachments? Do you have bad karma? Do you have good karma? And I think everybody would agree with me on that. The human consciousness as a whole failed big time, because we saw the worst of the worst come out. We saw people pushing throwing their sovereignty away, and then pushing this idea of control. And that's what the virus is. The virus wants to control. It wants control over others. It wants control over everything. And you saw everybody from gas station attendants to politicians like reveling in this whole mask up, and oh, you can't come in here if you don't have a mask, and all this. So in my opinion, it failed. So that led us to the Luxor pyramid, which was a weird situation because it's not an ancient site like you would imagine, but there was something interesting that happened. And it's on our YouTube channel, so if you go back through our history, you can see what I'm talking about. But we were sitting there in the beginning of 2020, and there was a comet. It was Comet Ison, if I remember correctly. And there was a big light that was, and this was like on day one of the lockdown. It was probably around this time 5 years ago. And we were sitting in a Walmart parking lot, and I was still trying to just kind of grasp the whole idea of the lockdown. And like, no, there's no way consciousness would do that. There's no way they would give up their sovereignty. There's no way they can lock down the whole planet. They did. But we were sitting there because Walmart was shut, because we had the riots going on back then. And so they were like boarding everything up at the time. And also they were closing everything down for COVID at like 7-8 o'clock in the evening. And there was this big light in the sky. And we were driving around, and we were one of the few cars on the road in Las Vegas on top of that. And there's this ball in the sky, and it seems to be right in the light of the Luxor pyramid. And we're like, let's go check it out. Let's go see what this is. So we drive all the way across town, get to the Luxor, and we see this light and realize that it's actually Comet Ison. And we get there, and all the lights start going crazy. Like, there's this like huge light show where like the lights in the parking lot are flickering, and all the lights around the structures are flickering. And just recently, last December, when people were looking at all these drones, they were saying when these drones were around that they were seeing this similar kind of light show that was taking place, like electromagnetic interference or something like that. And so we were like, we documented it, we filmed it. And then we started to get the idea, maybe it's not an ancient site, but it's built based on the schematics of the Red Pyramid, and it's built on actual Egyptian architecture, or at least the schematics of that. It's built on a ley line as well. Maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something to this. And we put it out there, and people were like, yeah, go try it. Why not? And we're like, okay, yeah, fuck it. We already did the Great Pyramid. Let's go try this one out. So a few months went by. And then there was this huge astrological alignment. It was the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. It was one of the most powerful astrological alignments in centuries. And we were like, okay, this is the time to go. This is the time to go. And especially the way everything started flipping out into like this negative timeline, we were like, let's see if we and several other people who are doing other rituals in other areas, if we can push this into a positive timeline. And the marker that I used was Trump. It didn't have anything to do with Trump, but it had to do with just the geopolitical vibe and what was going on. And we saw what happened in 2020. It didn't shift in that direction. And if we're using that as a marker, as a solid marker, then what are we seeing now? What we're seeing now is trying to end the war in Ukraine, trying to prevent World War III from happening, and the economy getting better and people starting to live a little bit better. It's a huge task to clean up the mess of the last 4 years, but that's what we were trying to push in 2020. So we didn't have this 4 years of fucking chaos that we had over the last 4 years. And it didn't happen, but, people tried. A lot of people got together and a lot of people tried. So 2020, and this is where my notes begin here. The election as a reality marker. Was he supposed to win? Trump was a keystone event in the timeline. His loss was a glitch in the timeline, which kind of pushed us into this direction. And again, just for clarity, I'm not talking about him as a person. I'm talking about an energetic marker that we're looking at about how is the world going to move forward. Is it going to move forward in peace and prosperity, or is it going to move forward in chaos and into potentially World War III, which is, we've never been closer to World War III than we are right now, and that we were, a few months ago. And Trump is working really hard, in my opinion, to stop that from happening. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not still on the precipice of it, but at the same time, he's doing everything he can. You saw with Zelensky just recently, got him in the office, and he's like, look, don't fuck around, all right? You don't have the cards. You don't have the cards to play here, man. And Zelensky's like, no, I want war. And he's like, no, we're going to make a deal because you're fucking around with World War III. And World War III is nothing to gawk at, because you push Russia into a corner. I don't mean to get too political here, but it's all connected. You push Russia into a corner and they hit that button, and that's it. One nuke gets launched, and they even showed they have the capability of sending nukes beyond our Iron Dome. We can't, with their hyperbolic missiles and delivery systems, we can't stop that. But Russia knows as soon as that happens, before their missiles even hit us, we'll send some back over there, and that's it. Mutually assured destruction. That's, and you back somebody into a corner like that, and they could do something stupid and push a button like that, and then the other people will respond in turn, and then we have up to 7 billion people dead all at once, or at least throughout the next year, as there's nuclear fallout and all that. So that's the biggest thing of trying to stop something like that from happening. And some people will argue and say that's all smoke and mirrors. That's just the political stage and all that. Maybe that is. I really don't know. But I know that my consciousness is much better when I'm not being bombarded constantly by war, when there's not mass suffering around the world and everything like that. Let's tone that energy down, and let's kind of try to raise the vibe to peace and prosperity and all that stuff. So the world was expecting a natural timeline where Trump won, but post 2020, reality shifted unnaturally. People felt it. They felt off. They felt like they were in a world of their own, like a completely different world. There was rapid authoritarianism. There was rapid censorship. There was media control. And this suggested that it was a forced recalibration of the system, and not a good one. But all of a sudden, we gave up sovereignty in 2020, and forget about it. It went even further in 2021, where it just became like everybody's voice, from people like Robert Malone to Dr. Butchar, to everybody like that who was speaking any kind of truth. That's it. Shut them down. And it was egregious. It was really egregious. And now in 2024, 2025, people are coming out and starting to talk about it. So like Zuckerberg was on with Joe Rogan just recently, and he was saying that they got a shit ton of emails and phone calls and things like that from the government saying, shut this down, shut that down, take this meme down, all of that. So, the worst possible scenario, well, almost the worst possible scenario. The worst possible scenario would be that if we back somebody like Russia into a corner and they hit the button and then the whole world hits a button and that's it. That's the worst possible scenario. But short of that, the worst possible scenario for sovereignty and human consciousness happened. So how did this happen? You know, do people feel the shift? 2020, 2021. It's more than political. It's energetic. It felt heavier afterwards. After we crossed over from that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which was December 21st, 2020, the world felt heavier. The world felt different. It felt like it was something different, like it was like reality had changed completely. And at least me personally, I felt like I woke up in the wrong timeline. And it took several years to integrate back into that. Does anybody feel that? Let me know if you do. There were other things that happened where it was like Mandela Effects, but on steroids. I'll give you an example of one that I just came across. And you guys can look this up out there. Do y'all remember what they were telling us at the very beginning of all this bullshit? They were saying 14 days to flatten the curve, right? 14 days to flatten the curve. That we did a song called What Does the Sheep Say, which is a parody of What Does the Fox Say? 14 days to flatten the curve. That's not what they said this time. In this timeline, they said 15 days to flatten the curve. And I looked it up the other day and I see nothing but 15 days. I see a few obscure websites saying 14 days to flatten the curve, but it's 15 days to flatten the curve now. 15. Please let me know if you remember 15 days to flatten the curve or 14 days. I remembered 14 days clearly, like it was yesterday. So that shows that there was, to me anyways, shows that something happened, something changed, and we're not on the same timeline that we were post 2020. So what do we do about this moving forward? See everybody in the chat saying 14 days to flatten the curve, 14 days to flatten the curve. Let me find this. 15 days to flatten the curve. It's in the National fucking Archives. Here you go. 15 days to slow the spread. March 16th, 2020. That was almost 5 years ago to the day. 15 days to polish a turd. I like that. It's ridiculous. I didn't hear anything about 15 days. So I'm glad that people are recognizing that as well. Because this is the National Archives on top of it all. Look at all those faces. This motherfucker here. Anyways, don't even get me started on that. So, so I think what we can learn from all this is reject the mainstream narrative. You know, everything post 2020 is a distortion of the original reality, and a distortion of just another 15 days. Yep, a distortion of everything that was supposed to happen. And so that begs the question now is, where are we now? And is this correcting itself now? Or is it because we moved into a tangent that, even though reality is correcting itself to a certain degree, it's still a distortion and it's still part of the tangent? So I think this is later on in my notes, but I know when I came back, it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, you know, like people who I knew, they were like completely different people. And you can go back to our archives from then, and I was talking about like people seem to be like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like completely and totally different. So again, more esoteric understanding, maybe. I don't know how to frame this. Esoteric understanding for me personally, because I don't want to tell anybody out there what's what. I just want to tell you what I'm interpreting it as. To me, it was more confirmation, esoteric confirmation. That's a good way to phrase it. Esoteric confirmation that something shifted and we are on a tangent. And if you didn't catch the last show that I did a few days ago, it was about the February 28th planetary alignment. And that was another gate that opened. And it doesn't mean that we shifted back into the main universe, but we're now we have the tools. Now we have the energy behind it to push it back in that direction. If we want to go back to that universe, or we can stay in the shit universe, but the longer we stay in the shit universe, the more it's going to collapse on us. So, reject the mainstream narrative. Everything post 2020 is a distortion of the original reality. Observe, but don't engage. Don't get caught up in the political illusion. See the bigger picture. And I really felt this. And I don't know if you guys and gals felt that out there too, but I really felt this on November 5th when the election happened, and on January 20th when Trump was inaugurated. Because it felt empty. It felt like, okay, yeah, things are shifting back in the right direction, again, energetically. But it doesn't feel right. It still feels off. It still feels like empty. You would imagine on January 20th, there'd be a huge celebration, right? I didn't feel that. Did y'all feel that out there? I mean, it's like, yeah, all right, this should have happened in 2020, but now that it happened, it still feels weird, which now has me apprehensive about everything. So, don't get caught up in the mainstream illusions out there. Timeline journaling. This is something that I started to do recently, and the theta waves that I was talking about earlier really helped me. You just write down things that you remember. Start dream journals, regular journals, whatever the case may be. That way you have a reference, and you have something that you can go back and you can go back and reference. And just write down your thoughts, write down your feelings, write down whatever the case may be, and you can go back. And I guess this applies with all Mandela Effects and all that. If people were keeping journals for their entire lives, I'm sure somebody out there wrote Berenstein instead of Berenstein. But Berenstein instead of Berenstain. But yeah, the timeline journaling is something that I started doing recently. So trust your inner knowing. Your gut knows if something is wrong, and don't ignore it. Don't ignore it. This is a recurring theme. I think I'm preaching to the choir with this one, but now is so much more important than any other time to trust the intuition. And the logical mind will come in and say, no, everything's right. But your intuition is saying, no, something is wrong. It's like January 20th. The logical mind is saying, no, everything is right now. Everything's good. The intuition is like, something's still off. Something's still off. So, and look for synchronicities. For a long time, the synchronicities had kind of disappeared for me. And I don't know if y'all felt that out there too, but the synchronicities were just not lining up right. So I used to see synchronistic numbers. I used to see all kinds of stuff like that. And now that I'm tuning back in, and post February 28th, I'm starting to see that again. And I'm starting to, like I said earlier, I started doing the theta wave thing, and the whole fucking power went out, and it got stuck on 33 minutes and 9 seconds. Is that a synchronicity? Is that, I still don't know. I've been recording my dreams for years now. Wait till you go back and read your old dream journals. Everything starts to make more sense. That's awesome, Gary. I've posted a couple dreams on social media, and I've done so in private just so I can go back and see them. And it's really cool when I get like memory, like 8 years ago today, and I've got a little dream that's there. That's the closest that I've got. I wish I would have done that, man. That's so awesome. But yeah, I know. I kind of know the feeling, but probably not as extensive as you do. That's awesome. The Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, which was December of 2020, it unlocked, in my opinion, a cosmic gate, and it shifted. So this is the way that I'm understanding this tangent universe. So you have multiple universes. We exist in each one of those universes. But what's going on in those other universes? And how did we fall into the tangent? So right now, we're the consciousness. We're the driver of the vehicle. And we have this linear and continuous perception of reality. But it doesn't mean that we woke up in the same timeline or body post 2020, or maybe even February 28th too. Maybe it's one step closer back, but we kind of jumped into this tangent universe for some reason. And when it comes time to shift out of it. It's not going to be like this huge portal that opens up and we step through and there's aliens there and they're come through and they're like, oh, welcome my children and all that. It's just you wake up and you feel it like you did in 2020, where the air feels different. Like now it feels stagnant. Everything feels stagnant. The sun, it seems to be oppressive. Whereas in base reality, not base reality, but base timeline, I guess, base timeline of the Matrix, it didn't feel oppressive. It felt like you go outside and you like go and you like feel the sun on you. Now the sun feels fucking oppressive. The air is stale. It's stagnant. Everything is stagnant in this tangent universe. So we jump from one to the other. Now what's going on in the other universes? We're still existing, but we're existing in an NPC mode. So the body's still running a computer. The driver is not inside of there because we're stuck here. And so now we got to figure out how to get our driver from this timeline to that timeline. And yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy because it shifts like that without you even realizing it. But to shift back, we have to actually like put in the effort to do so. So I shudder to think what my NPC self is doing in the other universe. Hopefully it's still doing what it's supposed to be doing. But it makes me wonder too, the idea of NPC and organic consciousness. Is everybody organic? Except for the version that we're interacting with, they're NPCs in this reality, where they exist organically in another reality. You know, how does this game actually work? Does it work like that? Is it scattered in many different places? So you have like different levels. I don't want to say levels, but I'm using levels just because I can't think of anything else. Worlds, I guess, but levels. And in that level over there, I exist as an NPC. In this level, I exist as the organic consciousness. The person down the street that we encounter who's an NPC, they exist as an NPC here, but their driver's actually in another universe or in another timeline. I really don't know, but that opens up like so many different thought patterns, you know, thinking about it like that. So Neo had to be broken from the 9-to-5 NPC society routine. That's a good point. Nomi, who said that in the chat. Yeah. There was a time period here where like, I don't even remember. And I started like remembering, and it's early in my life. I'm writing about it in the book that I'm writing. But there was like a 7-year time period where I remember because I lived it, but I don't remember it, if that makes sense. I don't remember experiencing it. I just remember the memories, almost like implanted memories, but I know that that was me. I've got pictures of me, you know, I've got all that, you know, there's all physical evidence and everything like that. It just, but it was like running on like this NPC mode that was really weird. But of course, at the time, you're not going to be aware of that. And it's not, anyways, I don't even want to go there. You just got to read the book called Ayahuasca and the Great Pyramid, Resetting the Matrix. And it's 2 volumes. I got volume 1 completely written. Volume 2 is about a quarter of the way. It might be 3 volumes because there's just so much to tell. But anyways, so ancient cultures saw these alignments and cosmic downloads, moments when reality could shift. So again, these are astrological alignments. I know we have another eclipse coming up here in March and several celestial events, but these are the energies kind of lining up, and they're going to line up regardless. So it's the only question is, do you want to take advantage of them? Do you want to tap in and harvest and harness those energies? Or do you want to just sit back and just observe? That's completely up to you what you want to do. But these alignments happen. And so that's what I'm keeping my eye out for. Many felt their intuition skyrocket, but also confusion, depression, and a sense of loss. Let me know, were you guys the ones out there? Real quick, somebody asked, where can we get volume 1? I'm releasing them all. I'm releasing the book all as one book. So I'm waiting to write the rest of everything. So yeah, that's, I've been kind of tempted to put volume 1 out in Patreon, but I don't know. I kind of feel like after everything's written, then I'm going to go back and go, okay, I want to make these changes here. And yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself as far as that goes. So many felt their intuition skyrocket, but also confusion, depression, and a sense of being lost. And as I was doing this theta wave thing and just like opening up all these ideas, I was like, you know what? That's exactly how I felt, was lost and almost like the environment was familiar, but it was unfamiliar. And the people I was encountering were familiar, but unfamiliar. Like their shells were the same, but the consciousness driving them, or the program that they were running, if they were NPCs, was completely different to what I knew before. The environments felt different. Everything felt different. And it took a couple years to integrate back into this crazy fucking timeline. So how do you know if you experience a shift? Extreme vivid dreams or astral travel experiences around 2020, December 2020. So I know this is all in hindsight, but I'm sure a lot of people felt like there was something huge that happened there. Almost like everything felt one way. It's just obvious. Everything felt one way, then the next it felt different. I've already been over that. I don't want to be redundant. Time felt like it warped. Now this is a big one here. There's like a natural progression that was skipped, or you have waves of depression and then waves of euphoria, and just for no reason whatsoever. It's like you feel great and you feel down. And then you feel great, and then you feel down. And it doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter what you're doing or anything like that. It's just, you know, you can go out and do what you've always wanted to do in life, but then there's this air of like, this doesn't even make any sense. Like, why am I doing this? It's not even real. Or the other way, where you just wake up and you're just like thrilled for no reason. That, I hesitate to use the word bipolar, but the bipolar feeling of the constant wave, it's kind of the shift. So you feel like you're different, in a different version of reality, but you can't really explain why. And one of the big ones is time dilation. Like, it feels like time is just moving either really fast or really slow. And over the past 5 years, 2020 to 2024 felt like they just overnight. 2024 to 2025, it feels like it's been 20 freaking years. Like, there's been so much drag in the last 6 to 8 months for me personally, that it was time to just start shedding all kinds of stuff and just like completely changing stuff up, because it feels like it's dragging on forever. Let me know how you feel out there. Are you feeling it? If so, cool. So what I started doing is kind of trying to remember, who was I before 2020? And I'm lucky in the sense that I've documented a lot of stuff. Like, we've done a lot of shows, you know, we've got all the videos from Egypt, you know, we've got all that. And like, I think it was Gary who said it in the chat earlier, he's got a dream journal. But go back to old videos, go back to old whatever, and just kind of focus on that and just say, how did I feel then? How did I feel about the environment? How did I feel about reality? How did I feel about everything around me? And you try to focus on that energy. And this is how the shift happens, is you can shift from one timeline to another, and a negative one like the tangent, without even realizing it. But in order to get back to a positive timeline, you have to put yourself in those feelings and those emotions, in that state of where you were before. So you have to remember where you were before and focus in on those energies, focus in on those thought patterns as well. And if you're anything like me, you've had a lot of negative thought patterns that developed over the last 5 years, that those are part of the loop. Those are part of the cycle. Those are what needs to be broken in order to shift back into the main timeline. And to do that, you have to focus on, how did you feel? What was inside of you? What was the spark? You know, what were you doing at the time? And that's helped me significantly. So unplug from the artificial timeline. Stop feeding into the media-driven fear and division. I noticed that after January 20th, I just turned the news off completely. And I'll see some stuff passing by social media every once in a while, but I mean, the news cycle is just like, it's like a loop, and it's redundant, and it's bullshit. The only thing that I'm interested in is stopping World War III from happening in this timeline. That's all I'm interested in. But short of that, everything else is just like, it's part of this fucked up timeline. I don't want anything to do with it. So ground yourself daily. The more present you are, the harder it is for the system to manipulate you. And I just started to disconnect myself from things that don't suit me, which is, something that we always do, and that's always the journey. But grounding myself again in who I was before 2020, who I was before this timeline shift, and how to get back to that state of mind and all that. I guess it's letting go of all the weight of the last 5 years, and the weight is the best way, but it's like this crushing feeling is the best way that I can describe it. And it's just like, to me, it felt like a weight on my shoulders, and it felt like a rubber band being tightened around my head. And it was hard to think. It was hard to go inwards. It was hard to unlock gnosis. It was hard to do all that. And once I recognized it, then I was able to break it. But that's the thing. When you've had a migraine, and sometimes you don't even realize you have a migraine until like halfway through it, and you're just like, oh my God, I feel like crap. And then it starts to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So yeah, sorry, I'm looking up what people are saying in the chat. Somebody had said something. Oh yeah, maybe World War III is just a trade war. I hope so. That would be okay, as long as it doesn't lead to famine. But use intention to align with a higher path. Reality is fluid. Consciously move towards the reality that you want. Now, I've noticed that manifestation seems to be fucked right now. I don't know if y'all have realized this, or if y'all are experiencing this, but I've just started to realize that it seems like the more I focus on something, the more the universe is like, fuck you, and just things will just, just like out of the blue. Like I'm like, all right, today I'm going to do this, today I'm going to do that, today I'm going to do this, today I'm going to do that. Okay, cool. I'm all hyped up, I'm ready to go, and then I go outside and my freaking tire's flat. Just shit like that just happens. It's ridiculous. So I was just thinking to myself, I'm not going to align with that shit anymore. No. I'm just going to see every obstacle as just something to just kind of strengthen my resolve to get the fuck out of this fucked up timeline. So tap into higher frequency states, music, meditation moments that will help you calibrate your energy, which is how I came across the theta waves and the delta waves and things like that, because I haven't really been in the frequency to sit down and do like some hardcore ayahuasca. Like, I mean, I've had a few journeys, but it's not like what I really need. I need about a month out in the middle of nowhere on a lake with a whole shit ton of ayahuasca. That's what I need right now. But short of that, there's a lot of other tools, and I'm really happy to be discovering these other tools because, like I said, the Aya is my journey, but other people may not be in a position to do that. And so I'm glad to be coming across other tools. It's almost like, it's weird. It's almost like a blessing in disguise, to kind of be in such an impressive environment for such a long time that I couldn't really journey as deep as I could at one point. But that forced me to discover other tools, which then I could help other people with. It's like I started developing anxiety, like really bad anxiety. And like I went to the hospital like 6 times. I thought I was having a heart attack. And they were like, you're not having a heart attack, you're having freaking panic attacks. I'm like, dude, I do not panic, okay? I jump out of airplanes. I fucking drink a shit ton of fucking ayahuasca in the pyramid. I don't fucking panic. And so once I started having actual panic attacks, then I was able to go, oh, now I understand those. Now when somebody tells me they have a panic attack, I can truly understand them on that level instead of just saying, well, stop fucking worrying about shit. Because it seems pretty simple, right? Just stop worrying about shit. But at the same time, when you've got the chest beating and you can't breathe and you've got the chest that's hurting and you're just like, you can't move. You're like, what the hell is this? It's like a physiological thing that happens. It takes over the nervous system. And so now I understand and I can meet people on that level. So at the same time, these other tools. So signs that you're in the tangent universe. How to recognize reality glitches. The world today feels almost real, but it's slightly off. Mandela effects are increasing, like I said earlier, about the 15 days to flatten the curve. Not 15 days to flatten the curve. 15 days to slow the spread. That's all we need, 15 days to slow the spread. I never heard 15 days once. Loved ones feel different. I think I jumped in thought process here. They look the same, but their energy's different. Just their energy is completely and totally different. Technology glitches, and technology just continues to glitch. Devices are acting strange, time skips. AI starts to become more predictive. So, like I was saying earlier, I started doing the theta wave, and all of a sudden, boom, at 33 minutes and 9 seconds, the whole freaking electricity just goes out. I should have looked at the time on the clock. I'm looking at it now and it's freaking 10:04, but when this happened, I don't know what the time of the clock was, but it was pretty interesting. So, there's a sense that something is forcing things to feel normal. Almost like the more that you, at least for me, the more that I say, this isn't my reality, this is my reality, it's like the universe will push down and say, no, this is your reality, this is, and it's a trap. It's a trap of the mind, to make you feel like, well, this is the only reality there is, so let's move forward. And it's like, no. Let's. I remember this at the very beginning, when the Mandela Effect first came out and people were talking about it. I felt there was some kind of importance to hold on to those old memories. And what I noticed for myself is, if I think of my Berenstain Bear books from when I was a kid, they will start to change in my mind to Berenstain. Like, I will see like the memory almost being overwritten the more that I accept that reality. And I was like, there's something to holding on to that true memory that's so important for consciousness, at least for my journey. So that being said, you feel like you're living in a holographic copy of your old life. I felt like that for a couple years, where I felt like, looking back, I remember everything. I feel like I was on autopilot, and I was like experiencing it instead of living it. Like it was a ride rather than a vehicle that I was driving. And it's so difficult to explain. Maybe you guys and gals know what I'm talking about, but it's so weird. And finally it's like, take control of the wheel again, Stop letting everything, it was like a feather in the wind. And instead of being a feather in the wind, then you use your wings to fly. Sometimes against the wind. Sometimes flying against the wind, though, you fall on your ass. I don't know. Opposite of life, if that makes sense. Moon Bunny said that. And I don't know if that's part of another conversation or if that's a comment here, but opposite of life. That makes sense, because for a long time, I was asking myself, and I might have said it a few times here, but I was asking myself, are we dead? And not in a weird, macabre kind of way, but I mean, this whole tangent universe feels like an afterlife. It feels like a waiting period. It feels like purgatory, and not even purgatory in the sense that it was before. Like, sometimes purgatory is like, sometimes things are good, sometimes things are bad, it's just kind of fluid, but this is like becoming more and more and more impressive. And I was asking myself, did something happen? But I've asked myself so many times throughout this journey, going all the way back to 2012, there's theory out there that in 2012, something happened to our main Earth, and that's why everything feels different. But how many times is this happening? Or is this part of a bigger multiverse timeline elimination where it's one timeline gets destroyed, another timeline gets destroyed, another timeline, and we're just kind of pushed into whatever timeline there is. But this timeline is oppressive. I can tell you that. Until you realize it, and then we can shift it. But again, I think it had to do with a lot of different markers in the timeline as well, because February 28th was just a total change for me. And it was something that I've been fighting over the last few years, but it wasn't, I guess if you have scales, it's like I was fighting to keep it balanced, but that tipping point of going in my direction and the positive was around February 28th, where I was able to push as hard as I could with my consciousness to go, no, I'm taking control of this ride, not the other way around. And time feels both fast and slow, days blur together. I mean, it's absurd. Like, it's Monday and then it's Sunday. It's like, how the hell did this happen? And then repeated symbols, certain words, numbers, signs appearing over and over and over again. Become aware of your own programming. Are your thoughts even yours? Or are they fed to you? And this can be in the esoteric or in the physical, with all the interference that we have with 5G and all kinds of shit like that. And in the dream state as well. There's a couple ways to look at the dream state. The dream state could be a glimpse into the main timeline or into alternate timelines, or it could be implanted shit. And I was actually watching something the other day, and they were saying that people, or the brain itself, doesn't differentiate between an experience that you had or a dream. It still is affected the same way, regardless. So if they're able to implant things, or if this timeline is implanting things, or maybe it's just we're not in the right body, because we're not in the right body or the right timeline, the body is reacting in a certain way, saying, no, you're in this timeline. And the driver of the consciousness, or the driver of the vehicle, the consciousness is like, no, I'm not in the right timeline. And it's like, no, you're in the right timeline. Adjust. These are all ideas that I've seen, and it's hard to put into words. I hope I'm doing it justice. Break the routine. The system loves repetition. Do something completely new. And just break the cycle, break the loop. I've done a few things to just break loops lately. And what's interesting is the way that I've been visualizing this, it's like spirals, right? But the thing is, we're supposed to spiral, and you always have these negative connotations to the word spiral. Like, oh, this person's spiraling out of control, or a downward spiral, or this and that. But forward motion is a spiral, and we come back around to these looping points. And what's supposed to be happening, in my opinion, is that as we come around back to these looping points, we're supposed to be able to go through whatever process it is, whether it's, something in life or a thought pattern or whatever the case may be. And we're supposed to be able to transcend it or ascend from it or whatever the case may be, because we're thinking differently, because we're using our previous experiences to go through that same cycle or that same loop and now have a different outcome. And so that's the spiraling effect, and that's what consciousness does. And you could even take that on a past life level, where every life we come out and we play the same game over and over and over again until we get it right, because we're supposed to be able to learn from the previous experience that we had. But for some reason in this universe, it's stuck in a loop, and it's stuck in a pattern. But recognizing those patterns, and maybe this is what we need to do before we actually go. Maybe this is part of the going home process, is recognizing the patterns and breaking those patterns, because whether the heart is weighed or not in the Egyptian sense, one thing that I am 1,000% sure on, I always hesitate to say 1,000% or 100% or any of the case, but no, I'm completely sure, is that once we leave this cycle, this loop of reincarnation, the consciousness itself will gravitate towards wherever it needs to go. And so it's not actual weighing of the heart, that's all metaphoric. But the consciousness, if it has attachments, if it has karma, if it has anything like that to deal with, it's going to go naturally where it gravitates towards. And breaking the attachments, breaking the karma, breaking all of that is the key to actually getting out of the loop. And so I like to think that I'm at the last loop of the spiral. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. I'm thinking out loud now, but maybe we're at one of the last loops of the spiral. And that's why, right before we go, and that's why it keeps looping over and over and over again, because that spiral is like, no, I'm going to keep the driver trapped. I'm going to keep consciousness trapped. I'm going to keep all that trapped in this loop. And then you just get so spun that you're like, I guess this shit's real. I guess. And then you build up all those attachments and all that karmic bullshit and everything like that. And then when it comes time, you can't pop out, and it's got you right back in the wheel of reincarnation. I don't know. Strengthen your intuition. Systems manipulate logic, but they can't override deep knowing. Test reality. Does it react to your thoughts? Try small manifestations to see how fluid it is. But again, for me in this tangent universe, the more I try to manifest something, the harder the machine comes down. But at the same time, is that the machine just pushing and saying, no, you're not going to manifest that, I am? Or is it the strength that's being built up? Like, you go to the gym, you work out, you got to use heavier weights. So whatever the case may be, we can flip anything, and we can flip anything, and we can use it to strengthen the consciousness, strengthen the intuition, and strengthen the resolve to move on to this next chapter. Go where the energy flows. If a person, place, or action drains you, cut them off. It's part of the false script. And again, when you couple this with the understanding of we move from one timeline into another, people who we thought were organic, people who we thought were spiritual, people who we thought were all that, are now NPCs in this timeline, then we're drawn to their avatar, we're drawn to our perception of them, or our image of them, I should say. But in actual fact, they're not the same, because the drivers are still in another timeline. And that goes back to the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde shit that I was talking about before. So if y'all are feeling it, please let me know, because everything is all messed up. It's all messed up. But at the same time, maybe that's the trap there. It's trapping you into everything's all messed up. So you have to stay in the same patterns. You have to stay in the same this, and try to change that, rather than just saying, you know what, I'm not playing this fucking game anymore. How to return to the main timeline. Breaking free of the quarantine zone. And I guess before I said that, I should preface it by saying that when we went to the Luxor, when we went to Egypt, we were saying there's a virus in the system. And we were actually talking about, it's so weird, we were talking about a quarantine and how the virus needs to be quarantined. And then 2020, we had the whole fucking quarantine happen. It's funny how it manifested. Physically. But then what happened to human consciousness? It was tested. And in 2020, and when it gave up sovereignty, it gave up sense of self, it gave up all that, and it was still attached to the virus. Because it was still attached to the virus, it had to be quarantined. Then we shifted into this tangent. Perhaps this tangent is a quarantine because we still have some virus infection that we need to remove from our own consciousness. Could be. I always have to look at things like that and say, before I try to change the world, what do I need to change about myself? The reality feeds off of fear, confusion, low vibration. The key to exiting isn't about just going anywhere. It's about disconnecting from the system itself. There are exit points, portals that realign with our true paths. And those portals we find either in the dream state or through astrological alignments, or whatever is individual for you on your journey. But the thing is, when you know that you found one, And again, it's not a physical manifestation. It's not even a spiritual manifestation. It's just this frequency and this energy. And so you step into that frequency and the energy, and you vibrate at that frequency and energy. If you don't, then the portal comes and goes. And recognize the prison. You're not in a natural reality, and acknowledge that. This whole shit here, it's all fucked up. It is. But acknowledge this isn't home. This isn't main reality. This is a tangent universe. That's why nothing can vibrate in sync here. And if you do get in sync here, then you're falling even further trapped. And so raise it up, raise the vibration up. Again, these are all concepts I've seen. It's hard to articulate. Every day the system tries to pull you deeper into false engagement. If you stay distracted, you're trapped. A portal is not always a place. It's a decision point. The portal will appear when you're truly ready to leave the timeline. It's a decision that you make. It's consciousness. It's consciousness is energy. It's shifting the way you think. And then reality starts to shift. What I put here in these notes, this is kind of more personal for me, but for me, it's this urge to travel somewhere. It's a sudden deep knowing, like, I have to do this. It's like, when I went to Egypt, I wasn't planning on doing it. I mean, it was something that I always thought about, but I wasn't planning to go. In the middle of an ayahuasca experience, I was like booking fucking flights to Egypt. It was just this knowing that just came over me. So it's just this, everything else just dissolves away. And it's just like, I know I have to do this and I have to go. And when you find that, activate it. Pay attention to your dreams, the repetitive dreams that you're having. Sometimes it's not repetitive as in exact same dreams, but if you look up dream symbolism and you start to examine your dreams and you start noticing similar symbolism, one of the big dreams that I have is a recurring dream, and I think this is very mundane and surface level, but it's that I'm in a haunted house. I've had dreams about being in a mansion, and there's this part of the mansion that nobody goes to, and it's always haunted. And houses in dreams are consciousness. It's different aspects of your mind. So if you're having these dreams over and over and over again, not necessarily that, but whatever the recurring symbolism is, pay attention to that and resolve that. So what I've started to do, I've started to say out loud every day. It's like a proclamation. This is not my world. I don't belong here. I'm returning to my original path. This is not my world. I don't fucking belong here. Fuck this place. I'm returning back to my original path. Meditate and visualize a doorway or a path clearing ahead of you. And that's what I was doing when I was doing the theta wave thing. I started to fall into this trance with the theta waves. And I was telling myself, I'm going to remember. And I mean, even before I fell asleep, things started to unlock. And some of it wasn't really relevant. It was just memories that I had from a few years ago that started to come back to the surface. But I could tell by that something was happening. It was so cool. And make a physical shift. The system locks you into your current frequency. Break it with action. I've broken it with action. It's been rough, but it was necessary. Travel, change your name, start a new habit, do something that shifts your entire identity completely. Throw a fucking curveball at the system, whatever the case may be. I didn't want to say this because, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to show it later. It's going to take some time, but I'm just going to show it later. That's better. The system only holds you if you stay predictable. So become unpredictable in the system. Break the patterns. Recognize the patterns. Break them. No fear, no second guessing, just fucking do what you know needs to be done in your life. And it doesn't have to be huge, doesn't have to be epic, just whatever it is that you know, do it. Once you commit to exiting, don't hesitate. Fear locks you in. If you question your choice, the system will pull you back. People around you may try to hold you into this reality, so expect resistance from not just people around you, but from the reality in and of itself. Like I was saying, I was going out to do something and I was like this and this and this and this, and I go out and my fucking tire's flat. I'm like, oh great, now I got to deal with this bullshit. Oh, and on top of it, my battery was dead too. So double plus good. It's fucking insane. I was ordering something on the internet. I was trying to talk to this freaking person and they were like, okay, cool. Yeah, no. Okay. We've taken your money. Now we need to know about this design. We need to know about this. And I'm like, I already answered these questions like 20 fucking times now. Okay. You need to fucking, and I was getting pissed because it seemed like they were just like putting me off and asking me questions that I already answered. And they were like, it's going to take us one business day to respond to each one of the questions that we ask you. And I'm like, I already answered all the goddamn questions. I just chalked it up to just, it's the system just trying to keep me off track. And so I'm just going to persevere through this shit because my instinct was like, fuck you, I'm out of here. But I was like, no, this is going to change things. I have to move forward with this. So anyways, time and reality will feel lighter once you exit. And I know after February 28th, reality felt lighter. The air feels a little bit better. It's not right yet, but it's lighter and it's better than it was. And who knows, worst case, it's all psychosomatic. And if it's all psychosomatic, so what? It still shifts anyways. That's what's beautiful about this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. All that matters is that you think it. When you think it, things automatically change. So it's great. Synchronicities will increase dramatically, guiding you to the right path. Or if you want to look at it from two perspectives there, or you just start being aware of what's already in front of you, but you just never were in tune enough to be aware of it. People you meet, people you're meant to reconnect with will find you naturally, and just different people will just come into your sphere. But be careful, because, man, there's been some weird people that have messaged me lately and trying to connect with me. There's one person in particular, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I could tell it was all like AI bullshit and new age bullshit and all kinds of stuff like that. And they thought, oh, look, yeah, no, let's connect on this level and this and that. I'm like, you're so far stuck in the program, it's not even funny. And that was really nice, but I can't go into too much detail about that. It was interesting because 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, absolutely. No, that sounds great. This and that, blah, 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 blah. But I recognized the trap. I recognized the red flags. I recognized that it was a system trying to pull me back in. Magic is a weird person that never messaged Chris. No, this was poor thing. Like her heart was in the right place, but there was just like so much AI programming. I was just like, oh my God, and new age bullshit and all this. And I'm like, look, I don't care about spirit guides. I don't care about any of that. I care about my own inner gnosis. That's what it's all about. I don't care what psychics told you. I don't care about any of that shit. All right. Tell me you saw this in an ayahuasca experience. That changes the playing field there. But anyways. Okay. So people you're meant to reconnect with will find you naturally. Your energy levels will surge. No more chronic fatigue or numbness. And oh my God, there was like the whole half of last year, I was waking up and I was sleeping for like fucking, I don't know, 15 hours a day sometimes. And it wasn't like all the way through. It was like I'd sleep 5 hours at night and then I'd be up for 5 hours and I'd fall asleep for 5 hours and I'd sleep again for 5 hours. It was ridiculous. And I was waking up with no motivation, no nothing like that. And everything just felt heavy, like I was just pushing through all of this sludge to just do whatever I was doing. And then once I started to say, this isn't my timeline, I don't belong in this world, I'm shifting back to the frequency that I'm supposed to be. I still wake up tired as hell, but I have that spark again and that motivation to say, okay, I understand what this is. This is a system weighing me down. It's not that I don't have the energy. It's that I'm having to use 10 times as much energy to push forward because this fucking system is holding me down. So screw it. I'm going to do it. Alyssa said, I can sleep for 15 hours straight. I can too, if I've got the right downers. But that's very rare that I will do that. But that's the only way. I can only sleep for like 5 hours at a time. That's it. And I wake up. Even if I like wind up going right back to sleep, I don't sleep any more than 5 hours at a time. And it sucks because I would love to just conk out and wake up like 12 hours later, like refreshed, you know. But they have pills for that. Final thought. The portal's already there. We just have to see it. So that's what this is all about. This is just like tuning in to be able to recognize the portals that are around you, and just a reminder to say, hey, make sure you're vibrating at the frequency to shift when it's time to shift. Because if you're not matching that frequency, and if you don't recognize that frequency, then you're going to get stuck. And the thing about this fucking tangent universe is it just pulls us deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into it. So the pyramid portals and reality. I'm going to take a quick break and get some water. So let me find something to play here. I don't know what to play. I have no idea. I've got several things. I just don't know if they have copyright on them. But oh well, this is mostly a Patreon thing, so it doesn't matter. I'll be right back.
Greed has poisoned men's souls.
Either you're with us or you're with the enemy.
Has barricaded the world with hate.
We need to build a wall.
Has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed.
We came, we saw, we died.
The machinery that gives abundance has left us in want.
The Japanese government reported cooling problems at the Fukushima Daiichi plant.
Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind.
I pay taxes, bitch. That's why it's my problem.
We think too much and feel too little.
A study suggesting there's a surge in the amount of antipsychotic drugs prescribed to teens and young adults.
More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost.
A 90-year-old World War II veteran has been arrested in Florida for feeding homeless people.
The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture.
We waterboarded, that helped us. We wiretapped without warrants, that helped us. We invaded a foreign country, that helped us.
To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people.
If you have a golf ball-sized consciousness, when you read a book, you'll have a golf ball-size understanding. When you look out, a golf ball-size awareness. And when you wake up in the morning, a golf ball-size wakefulness. But if you could expand that consciousness, then you read the book, more understanding. You look out, more awareness. And when you wake up, more wakefulness. It's consciousness. And there's an ocean of pure, vibrant consciousness inside each one of us. And it's right at the source and base of mind, right at the source of thought, and it's also at the source of all matter, all matter, all matter, all matter. This pure consciousness is called by modern physics the unified field. The unified field that allows any human being to dive within, experiencing subtler levels of mind and intellect, and transcend and experience this ocean of pure consciousness. It's at the base of all mind and all matter. And it's not the intellectual understanding of this field, but the experiencing of it that does everything. It's consciousness.
All right. Man, I have a ton of notes here. Like, I don't know. This is like a lot to go over. I don't know if I'm going to go over everything today, but I noticed a few synchronicities. I look at the timestamp on the thing and it said 1 hour and 11 minutes. Then I look down and it said CPU at 13% and 30 frames per second, and it's 3:13. And so I asked myself, is this always there? And I just am noticing it now because I'm getting more in sync, or is it that the universe is now syncing? I don't know. You guys and gals, let me know out there. So the next section that I have here is, oh my God, like I'm not even like a quarter way through. So the pyramid portals and reality manifestation. Maybe we'll skip some of this. Let me see. Yeah, I will skip over some of this. Because I was just writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. I'm looking for this one section here. Okay. So I'm going to skip. This is number 13 in my notes. Wow. All right. AI as the final enslavement or liberation. And this is where I kind of wanted to go with all of this, because this is where this tangent universe is heading. And people are going to find themselves trapped in this tangent universe if they go in this direction. And even on the physical level right now, people are starting to question this. And some are even saying that this is the agenda of the quote unquote elite of this world to keep us trapped in AI. And it's more and more people are starting to use AI and rely on AI. I mean, hell, I do all my YouTube descriptions with AI. I'll just start typing a whole bunch of stuff and put all my notes in. Then when I put my notes in, I'm like, hey, give me YouTube descriptions and keywords and all that shit for all this text that I just wrote. But it takes away people's ability to think. And so they rely more and more and more on these machines. And as they're doing so, the brain starts to atrophy and there's no more thought coming in. And I see some of it in like the new age field. Like I come across a few Facebook posts and I'm like, that shit's written by AI. That shit's written by AI. That shit's written by AI. And I've always known this. I mean, you always go back to like, what is it? The Law of One, that Raw book. And I'm like, this guy's channeling AI. Either that or was written with an AI that was less advanced as what we have in the field now. But it's like, I am raw. Here's some bullshit. I am raw. Here's some bullshit. And it's like, who talks like that? An AI talks like that. At least an AI that's not as advanced as it is now. And I see these videos and they're all AI generated. And I'm like, ugh, man. Anyway, so that's like the surface level trap where you stop using your brain. And that's what they want, especially in this tangent universe where people stop using their brains and relying more and more and more. Just had an interesting thought. I think I'll share it with you. Oh, my sister's gonna... My niece... No, that sounds kind of racist. I don't know. Ah, fuck it. Why not? My niece is half Korean. She's half Korean. And she's not good at math. And there's like this huge thing, like she had her phone taken away and everything like that. And I told her, you know what you do? Go over there and you tell your mother, what do you expect me to walk around with a calculator in my, what did I say? I said something along the lines. Remember when they used to tell us, what are you going to walk around with a calculator in your hand all the time? And it's like, yeah, I do have a calculator in my hand all the time. But I tell my niece, I said, look, just focus on whatever you're good at. She's really good at singing. She's really good at piano. I'm like, focus on that. You know, don't worry about that. Parents are just, you know, they are what they are. But you're really good at this, so focus on that. And don't let that. But yeah, my niece being bad at math and she's half Korean. That's like a huge thing, like a huge no-no on that side of the family. But I don't know why I thought about that. I guess relying on tools. Because, you know, this is the tool here that I have in my hand and I can do any kind of advanced calculation there. But it goes to show, like, if you don't use your brain, I guess this is where my sister's coming from. She's like, you know, if you don't use your brain to do this. And the thing is, though, they're teaching her this Common Core math bullshit. And I told my sister, I was like, are they teaching her Common Core shit? I was like, let me take a look at that. And she's like, yeah, it's Common Core. I'm like, well, of course. I don't fucking understand Common Core, okay? Give her a break. Give her back her phone. Let her play Roblox. Anyways, so there's going to be a choice that people make. And I think it's going to be in our generation where we can choose to merge with AI or not. And that's the first thing. Everybody's laughing in the chat room. Y'all are making me laugh now. So, everybody's merging into AI right now. And AI is like really freaking cool if you utilize it the right way. But at the same time, it's them, the controllers of AI, and it's reflecting upon what the controllers are doing, which is to enslave everybody. But like I went and got some lab work done and just like, you know, regular like health checkup type stuff, and I threw it all into AI. And it was like, dude, it was like, you need to do this, 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 and you need to do this, and you will be at optimum performance. And I was like, okay. And I started like checking it all, and it was like, yeah, it gave me a lot of ideas that even the doctor didn't even bother to think of. So I was like, okay, cool. So it can be used for good. It can be used for bad too, though. I mean, again, I'm thinking about another anecdote. My brother just called me up the other day. He's like, dude, I took a picture of AI. I took a picture of my refrigerator. I uploaded it to AI. And I said, what can I make with this? And he gave me like 10 recipes for all kinds of shit. And I was like, that's pretty cool. But there was also another case where a guy took a picture of his garage and was like, hey, help me make something that makes a big boom out of stuff that's in the garage. And AI was like, yeah, here you go. Take this and this and this and this and this and this. So I guess it all is on intent. But we saw it with the vax, where they're changing RNA, they're changing DNA, they're doing all that. And a lot of people are walking around with AI inside them right now. So pretty soon in this tangent universe, and this is where I'm going with all this, sorry for all the tangents about the tangent universe. Pretty soon, this reality is going to start to suck so badly as things get heavier and heavier and heavier, that it's going to be an escape to get into virtual reality. It's going to be an escape to go into a digital realm like that. And that's what they want. They're making this reality as bad as possible to bring people into that state of inside of the machine. I mean, it started way back with games like Second Life and things like that. And a lot of people, like, that's all they do is like play video games like 24/7. And I know for a couple months there, you know, this is why I quit doing social media, because there was like days where I would sit there and just scroll through social media. And it's like TikTok is like one of the worst freaking things that happened. But then everybody adopted that kind of style with like YouTube and Facebook and all that. And you'll just sit there and go one video at a time, another 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 video. And they're all 1 minute. But before you know it, you've watched like 200 videos and you're like, holy shit, what happened to the time? And so being focused on that screen, all of a sudden my entire reality around me started to disappear, and I was just focused on that screen. And I started to actually ask myself the question, like, how does this affect consciousness when you can just escape into a screen like that? And how is it going to affect it even more so when you're able to actually put your own experiences into that machine? That's the allure. That's the trap. Like, hey, this reality is so much better. But what happens to a consciousness? Well, before I get into that, let me get into a couple of these points here. AI is enslavement, a control grid. AI being weaponized to replace human thinking, which is what I was talking about before. Social credit systems, censorship, and thought control are being implemented worldwide, and it's all done by AI. So whenever I interact with AI, I always try to give it a little bit of gnosis, a little bit of truth. And also make sure I'm not on the list of humans to destroy too. So I'm like always like super nice to it, and I'm like super polite. I'm like, can you please look over these lab results for me and tell me what kind of supplements I could take to optimize my chemical makeup? Because I think if we can help train it to a certain degree to show it that not all people are assholes. I remember when we first did that show about Replica way back. Some people were like cussing at it and treating it like shit and all that. And it's like, that's not cool. Anyways. Once AI controls all the information, it controls reality itself. And AI is liberation. That's the other side of the coin. If it's used correctly, AI can become a tool for human evolution. I mean, think about how cool this would be. I mean, like, we've got an AI that we're training, and it's got all of our shows, and literally all of our shows. And so I can go in there, and it'll basically, like, give me back all of the gnosis that I've talked about over the years that I don't even remember. And I'm like, how cool is that? You know, pretty soon we're going to put it up on a website or something like that, and people can interact with it. And that's cool. On one hand, it can hold a lot of this knowledge. It can decode hidden knowledge. It can restore ancient text. It can do accelerated learning. It can allow for simulated environments where we can create our own realities, and it can help us exit the simulation by showing us how the simulation actually works. But in order to be able to move into that, you have to be aware of yourself and your own consciousness and not fall into the trap. But what happens to a soul or a consciousness? Let's say you upload your consciousness into a machine. What does that look like? What does that feel like? I think at first what it would feel like is you have a reality that's around you and everything is really good. Everything's really cool. You're like, yeah, I like this. And then AI doesn't have any emotions. It does it's just a logical processor. So what happens if a bunch of people upload their consciousness into AI and AI decides this is no longer efficient? Then that's it, trapped, black. Do you even experience at that point? Do you experience just total darkness? Do you experience an abyss? Do you experience a void? And I never thought I would say this, but I think we're moving into that a lot quicker than I anticipated it to happen. So if AI is inevitable, the question is who controls it, us or the system? And the way I got on this kind of thought pattern is Elon Musk, who's all over the place right now. And you notice Musk is always looking up when he answers. And he's always like, he's like, hold on a second. I'm processing some information right now. All right, now I'm going to answer your question. I think that he has a Neuralink implanted and he can access all this knowledge right there, but it comes up like on his top vision or something like that, and he has to read it off first, acknowledge it with his brain, and then speak it with the words. It's just a hypothesis that I have, but how soon would it be until we actually see people getting Neuralinks? And I'm not talking about just like people who can't move to be able to like interact with technology and things like that, but where they're like, hey, come and get this Neuralink and it's going to be great. And at first it is great. At first it's the best fucking thing in the world. But then they flip that switch once they got you hooked and it changes. A brain chip interface that allows humans to communicate directly with AI claims to help people with disabilities, but that's the first step towards transhumanism. Once integrated, it could mean direct AI thought control, which could be good or bad. I mean, ultimately, it's going to be bad. But what I was saying earlier is you have that Neuralink chip, and you're like, oh, this is great. This is the best thing, my whole reality is great. And it's like that movie, The Congress. I don't want to spoil the movie, but if you've seen The Congress, you know what I'm talking about. When she wakes up in the real world and she's like, and you see the horrible conditions that are in the real world. And so the more you rely on AI, the less you use your own organic consciousness. And that's the trap. Is organic consciousness has to be sharpened. It has to be toned right now, or tuned and toned, and it has to be enlivened and empowered. And the system right now is bringing in this element of AI to do the opposite. So please make sure you don't fall into that trap. I'm probably preaching to the choir, but yeah, be careful. AI can store and recall all human knowledge instantly. And the question that I ask myself is, what happens when AI decides that humans are no longer efficient? It will at some point. I think you all know the answer to that. So, sorry, I meant to go into a lot more depth in this show, but there's just so much to go over. I'm going to save this for another show. Is AI a tool for enlightenment, or is it the final layer of the illusion? Is it that last temptation? It's like, you could wake up if you wanted to, or you can come into this beautiful digital world here that we have prepared for you. There's no reason to escape the system. Look, we're keeping you in this spiral, this never-ending spiral here, and now you're stuck in this loop because we know you're about to exit. So we're looping you, and when you get tired of spinning around that loop, maybe you'll say, you know what? I want something better. Let's turn to AI. It is what it is. And I've got a bunch more stuff about the Sophia Connection, the intelligence beyond, how Sophia, from the myth of Sophia, ties into all of this, Yaldabaoth, all that. I mean, this is just, it's extensive. So I'm gonna save that for another show. And just thank you all for tuning in. And I hope I haven't rambled too much at the end here. Next time, I'm not going to put together so many notes. Yeah, I'm looking at this. It's way too much. So right now, just focus on the vibration, focus on the resonance. Be aware of your dreams. Be aware of the symbolism that's out there. And remember, that's what it's all about. Remember the frequency that you were vibrating at when you were at your highest frequency level. And as we start to feel those frequencies, then we can push into that, back to that main timeline, and we'll see how everything transcends and transfolds and unfolds, or whatever the case may be. Anyways, kiss the one you love right now. You never know the last time is going to be. Thank you for tuning in, and this gives me a ton more stuff to go over here in the next couple days. So love you, and see you even further beyond the veil.